What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Carrie.
What's up?
I've had a delightful week of video games. I beat Rogue Trader. I have two more games besides that I got off my backlog. That's coming along pretty well. One of which I'll talk about later in the show. And I started playing No Man's Sky again. I think it's going to stick this time. I'm really just losing hours to that fucking game.
All right. That's a game I've considered jumping back into at some point.
Yeah.
I would like to. I think I would.
I think I read somewhere that the new, because I was compelled to go back in because of the new update that they just put out. They put out 28 content regular of their content updates since the game released, apparently, all for free.
28?
Yeah.
How long has it been?
It's been 8 years.
Oh my god.
If you can believe it.
Well,
again, the by far the greatest redemption ever in video game history.
It's that, and I think in second place is probably Fallout 76 at this point.
I mean, it's hard. It can really. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of historical examples of this, because it's really something that can only happen if your game is like a live service game, right? Like, you can't have a gaming redemption for a game that comes out and then, later on you put out like a patch or something like that. Like, that doesn't really work as well, I don't think.
No.
So Diablo 3 is up there too. Diablo 3 had a really rough first 2 years.
I kind of remember that. Yeah, I remember Diablo 3 having a rough start. I remember even the first Destiny had kind of a rough start.
Oh yeah, no, that's one too. That's one too. But I don't think I like your bringing up of 76, because I don't think that Diablo 3 or Destiny had reached the valleys as low as No Man's Sky or Fallout 76 did.
No.
So.
Yeah, those games were both hyped up for different reasons, of course. Sony had spent so much time hyping on No Man's Sky, and then that came out like a wet fucking fart. And then same thing with Fallout 76, right? Is, that had the Fallout title attached to it, so you expect it to carry some degree of quality. I will still argue, I think that game was fun when it came out, and I think it has really only gotten better. I just think that game needed a little more time in the oven than Bethesda wanted to afford it, and they really sort of paid the critical price on that. But much like No Man's Sky, all of those updates have been free. Yeah. So every big expansion on 76 has not come at any additional cost. And that game now, I mean, there's no way that game is more than $20, right?
I think it is more than $20, but I think it also goes on sale every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Basically. And when I say go on sale, I mean deep 80% off discount kind of sale. So
yeah.
But yeah.
So full price on Fallout 76 is $40 right now.
Okay.
That's your full regular price. And yes, so I'm pretty sure it's on sale for $20 every other week.
I do wonder, so games like that eventually enter this like I said every 2 weeks because I'm being cheeky, but seriously, Fallout 76 goes on sale for a deep discount literally every 2 months, I would say, probably. I would love to know how many copies of the game they actually sell outside of the sale periods. Are people savvy enough now that they understand that if you just wait a little bit, then you'll be good? Or is it just regular course of business because all the normies are buying it because they're like, I sure like that TV show on Amazon, and then
God, Fallout 76 is also 6 years old already, which is wild.
Yes, yeah, it is.
So
we're getting old, guys. Getting old. So a lot of news this week. That's what happens, as Carrie said before the show to me. When you take a week off, you get a fair amount of news. But first and foremost, let's give a quick recap on Evo. I really wish Mike was here because he probably watched the most of it out of us.
Yeah.
I really only watched Sunday, and even then, I only really watched a little bit. Obviously, the big story here, Victor Punk Woodley finally got or as many people were saying, finished the story. Cody Rhodes finally got the job done in Street Fighter, made his third grand final. Of course, he had lost in heartbreaking fashion in the other two.
Was it 2017? I think I remember them bringing up 2017 for him. Yeah.
Well, that was the big one, because if I recall correctly, and I'm probably fucking this up, and feel free to correct me in chat, everyone else. If I recall correctly, 2017 was he was in the winners bracket, and I think he lost out of the losers bracket basically from the guys, so he had to lose 2 sets. Which almost happened here, by the way. His opponent did reset the bracket and had a really like tense matchup, and it was cool to see when he won, because he was really emotional and the crowd was really happy. Also, the first American to ever win Street Fighter 6 at EVO, which is also an insane thing to realize, because EVO has been around for 20 years. So
and I think it's the first time in like 17 years or something like that that they've had an American win any Street Fighter on.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Okay,
is winning Street Fighter specifically. There are Americans that have won other events at EVO, but yeah, Street Fighter specifically has been won exclusively by Japanese players, and I think there was someone else from another country who I don't
feel like there was
recall.
like a Korean player who won. I don't know. I admittedly don't pay super close attention to EVO or the fighting game community much at large. My biggest interest in EVO is the fact that I have 2 homies who are on the music team. Trey Watson, if you were watching the Mortal Kombat 1 finals, he was on, or they were on the that intro song, and then my buddy Lacey Johnson performed on the intro song for Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. So yeah, just I like seeing my friends get cool opportunities. So that's really my biggest rooting interest in EVO, is just I like seeing my friends do cool stuff. But yeah, so I watched the Street Fighter finals. That was about it. But like that was a hell of a final with Punk winning, and then that I'm blanking on his name at this point. The runner up for Street Fighter was Big Bird. Was the runner up and all that. It was good. It was drama. I like drama in my fighting game tournaments.
The other weirdly, the other most viral moment from EVO, and I don't know the players' names. I'm sorry about that. But in there was a Street Fighter Third Strike tournament, and was it? I don't know if it was the final or not. That would be something crazy if it was the final. But it already was going around clips of calling it EVO moment number 38, which is a nod to the EVO moment 37, which is the Daigo Justin Wong perfect parry situation. Where in Third Strike, dude was playing Hugo and basically drop kicked over a super, like was that like the part that doesn't get talked about is the fact that he fucking perfect air parried a hurricane kick to even stay alive in the match, because if it had connected, it would have KO'd him. But after that, he perfectly reads his opponent throwing a super out, and then uses a move that Justin Wong, who's on commentary, like made sure to let people know, like that Hugo dropkick is like a useless move. Like it literally, nobody uses it. It's shit. It doesn't. It's not an effective move in an offense. But it also turned out to be the perfect move to just leap over the dude's super and make him whiff it completely, which he then countered into his own super and had a massive fucking pop off where where the dude was like running around the stage. This is the same dude that was like doing splits.
This was Hayao.
Yes.
This was Hayao, who I believe is JoJo posing in his like profile photo that was used on the stage and on the streams and whatnot. So like the dude who was like doing the splits and like had his fight stick like on the chair while he was sitting on the floor, like enormous pop off and whatnot. Here's the thing. He didn't win. He didn't win. Much like how Daigo actually didn't win that tournament either. But like just like the moment itself was such a pop off. Like you
Well,
gotta give it to him.
when the USA beat Russia in hockey, that was the semifinal. That wasn't even the gold medal game.
Yeah.
People Mandela affected into thinking that won them the gold medal. It did not. They had to
No.
win one more game after that. In fact, and there's a great Herb Brooks anecdote that the players talk about where after the gold medal game, like it was, or after the Russia game, where it's hugely emotional game, like major fucking thing. And in the lead up, I think they played Sweden in the final, if I'm not mistaken. And the pregame speech that Herb Brooks gave to them, he's like, if you guys go out there and lose this game, you're gonna take it to your fucking graves. And then he goes to walk out of the room and just turns around and just reiterates, your fucking graves, and then just fucking walks out. I fucking love that story. I don't know if it's true, but it feels like it's true, and so it's true enough to me. But quick 1980 hockey references aside, yeah, like I said, Evo by all accounts was a fun time, and from reports that I heard from people that were there, it's a hell of an event to go to now. Like it's turned into just like a regular like fun con basically. Even if you're not a big fighting game like hardcore player, like it's still a fun thing to go to because they have all the trappings that cons normally have. And it's just a cool vibe, like the FGC, a community that you might think would be filled with like assholes and jerks is actually one of the most cool, encouraging, chill communities that are out there. Like it's one of those communities where like I think they know that they're happy to have that kind of that community built, so they don't want to ostracize people from it. So it's a welcoming place, and Evo's cool. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, go check out some clips. Especially Street Fighter, the Guilty Gear final I also watched. That was a lot of fun too. And it was a good time. So the big story coming out of this week is that SAG-AFTRA voice actors for the video game industry specifically have gone on strike against publishers, basically saying that they were not able to negotiate acceptable protections around the use of AI in video games for its members. So this is something that they actually voted on last year, last September, that they would negotiate with the game publishers on a new agreement. And if they couldn't come to an agreement that they felt was worthy, they would go on strike. And so they've been negotiating for almost 2 years now with these companies. A couple of the publishers involved in these negotiations, Activision, which is now Microsoft, Blind Light, Disney Character Voices, EA Productions, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac, Epic Games, Take-Two, VoiceWorks, and WB Games. And now these actors cannot perform with these companies unless the companies want to hire a bunch of fucking scab to come in and do that work.
And unfortunately, in the video game industry, there are plenty of them. This is not the first time that we've seen voice actors go on strike. I want to say, it was a lot of like I recall some union like voice actors kind of calling out some early Switch titles, such as Octopath Traveler, for notably hiring a bunch of scabs. So if you want to know who in the industry is a fucking scab, you can go look at the cast list of the first Octopath Traveler, and there's a lot of them in there. I'm not saying all of them, but I am saying a lot of them are known as not being, union folks. So, I think the really obvious quote in here that, it's hard to disagree with is Chief Negotiator Duncan Crabtree Ireland saying that, frankly, it's stunning that these video game studios haven't learned anything from the lessons of last year, referring to the other actors and writers' strike, that our members can and will stand up and demand fair and equitable treatment with respect to AI, and the public supports us in that. So, yeah. It's wild that the video game industry looked at the rest of the entertainment industry with regards to AI and fair and equitable treatment with regards to its use and voice actors and whatnot, and basically said that doesn't apply to us. Like, surprise, bitch, yes, it does.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the
I also
typical
don't forget
management tactic, though, right? Is
that
they see how much rope they can take, and
mhm,
then when it's too much, they'll give a little bit back. But they still have a shitload of rope on their side of the fence to be able to work with. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
again, not to bring this back to sports, but that for me is the closest corollary, is that when a lot of sports unions have labor issues with their leagues, it's funny because they're negotiating over usually 50%, like the players. 50% is a great goal for them, but in reality, like, the players should be getting probably like at least 3/4 of the revenue that's coming in, because they're the ones
yeah,
that the fans are coming to see, and they're the ones that are doing the work. But because management had them in a position like they had them in for so long, like, even getting half a loaf still leaves management with a lot of room to maneuver
yeah.
on their side of the fence. And it's kind of the same thing here. From the video game, a spokesperson for the Video Game Producers Party, the Interactive Media Agreements, whose name is Audrey Cooling. I guess this is the conglomerate that's negotiating on behalf of all of the publishers. Their statement was that we're disappointed the union has chosen to walk away when we are so close to a deal, and remain prepared to resume negotiations. We've already found common ground on 24 out of 25 proposals, including historic wage increases and additional safety provisions. But of course, notably, the big one that's missing there is the whole AI discussion.
Is the AI discussion. Yeah. I also, like, I always forget until one of these stories comes out that Fran
Fran
Drescher is
Drescher's the president of SAG-AFTRA. Yes, it's weird to me every time I see it as well. So.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, right," but, she said, "We're not going to consent to a contract that allows companies to abuse AI to the detriment of our members. Enough is enough. When these companies get serious about offering an agreement our members can live and work with, we will be here." So
And it's important. I think it's really important for the union to take this stance now, because we really haven't seen what companies are yet going to do with voice acting AI. Like, they really haven't had the opportunity yet to test the boundaries. We've only seen little
well, we've
bits and
seen a
pieces.
little bit
Well,
of it,
I was saying the finals is probably the
notably
most notable example of the developers of the finals coming out and specifically saying, when their game released in early access, that they were using voice or AI voicing for the
well,
commentators
yeah,
in the game.
there's that, but there's also, I think the bigger thing that people tend to point to with regards to voice acting and AI in general, is what's going on with Scarlett Johansson right now,
Hmm, hmm.
which is, OpenAI has been sued by Scarlett Johansson for basically OpenAI using her voice for an AI tool
That's
without her consent.
that story is
You
so
know,
wild, because they even asked her.
they asked her,
Yeah,
she said no, and
right.
they went and they fed, all of her voice lines from every movie
Their
she's ever
response
been
was literally
in
like, well, I
anyway.
mean, if she doesn't want to do it, we can just generate something that basically sounds like her to do it.
Yep. So,
Just like, guys.
I think that's really what the actors are more concerned about, is more so having, obviously losing jobs to AI in the first place, but also having their past performances fed into an AI
Mhm.
bot of some sort to then generate new performances using that same voice without
Right.
them
Or
being
just or even, like, you don't even have to go so broadly. Like, just imagine, I mean, I guess it's still kind of what you're talking about, but, like, you could easily imagine a scenario where you have a voice actor, they come in, you pay them, they come in for several sessions, they record a whole game's worth of dialogue or whatever. And then when you need that same voice actor to come back in to record the dialogue for the DLC, or maybe you just need to re-record some stuff, or you
Mhm.
change some of the script. And then, instead of, publishers, in theory, instead of calling that voice actor and having to pay them to schedule more sessions with them, could say, well, we could just use the voice samples that we have on hand and just
To
generate,
spit something
yeah,
else
just
out.
generate
Yeah.
new dialogue from that as well. So, like, that's what they're trying to avoid here. Um, like, the concern is, from the publisher side, is that this could delay production of some games. And I guess they're hoping that that fact will help mobilize some of the public against them, because people don't like their games to be delayed. I think that publishers have done a good enough job at getting people more used to delayed games nowadays that I don't think that's going to necessarily have an effect.
I don't really think anyone's going to necessarily buy into the idea of, oh, well, if we can't have this, then games are going to be delayed by so much. Because you know what happens with voice actors is they go in for a few days.
Yeah.
A few days.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me that getting fucking, I don't know, Max Middleman in to record a few more lines for Ryuji in a Persona 5 game is going to delay that game by months. Like, no, that's not how that fucking works. I feel like most people are probably smart enough to realize that, though maybe I'm giving the general public a little too much credit.
I think there's some games where the potential is there. Like any game that's using mocap and stuff like that, obviously would be a bigger ordeal.
Sure.
But then again, you just kind of schedule around that. Like it's no different than, I mean, I guess it's very different because the timetables are very different, but it's in the same spirit as like a Hollywood production. Like if an actor's not available for a number of days, you reschedule your shooting schedule and work around that the best you can. So game developers could potentially do the same.
If you're actually doing the mocap stuff and you're not building in time for reshoots, then you're fucking up. Like,
yeah. So, like I said, I'll be interested to see how long this persists for. And I hope that the game community in general stands in solidarity to these folks. Look, just because it flows so nicely into the next couple stories, we do, of course, a recurring segment called This Week in Layoffs on the show, where we talk about gaming layoffs. But how about, for a change this week, in unions in the game industry? Pretty much all of Bethesda and Activision Blizzard have unionized across Microsoft. So the first one a couple weeks ago was Bethesda Game Studios, who of course are the developers of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series and Starfield, announced that they have done a wall-to-wall unionization, meaning that it's not just specific departments. It means that a majority of the workers at the studio have unionized, and not just at Bethesda in Rockville, Maryland, but also their Dallas and Austin studios as well. And Microsoft, true to their word, when they commented on this previously, have voluntarily recognized the union without any pushback or anything like that. So now begins the negotiation process, making sure that they can get a fair contract hammered out. And then on the heels of that, just literally 5 days later, all over 500 workers on World of Warcraft have unionized as well at Activision Blizzard. And again, this is a department spanning unionization as well, which is very, very cool. And also that includes some QA workers in Blizzard Austin too. And Microsoft, again, the same thing there, voluntarily recognized that union as well. So progress. This could be a big domino to fall in the games industry, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is by far the largest unionization that we've seen in the games industry so far. Going to be interesting to see what happens after this. I mean, I feel like the fact that Microsoft, obviously one of your big three publishers, hardware developers in the industry, that they are just voluntarily recognizing the union. There is no pushback or anything like that. You like to hope that that sets a positive precedent that other companies will follow, though that's not going to happen. There's going to be a degree of pushback in other sectors of this industry, but good for them. Long overdue, I think. I think this overall push for unionization in this country is really nice to see. I feel like by and large people benefit from it. There's not much of a downside to it.
And again, like if you are someone who is not in a position where you have the ability to unionize, even if you don't end up in a union, it still has a rising tide situation for people in competitive industries and other industries around the world as well. Probably the most famous example of this, UPS is a unionized company. FedEx is non-union. However, FedEx's benefits that they provide their workers are pretty much in line with whatever the UPS union negotiates with UPS, because FedEx wants to make sure that their workers don't organize into a union. So they make sure to give them no incentive to go and do that, to not be able to say, hey, well, UPS is getting this, this, and this, so why can't we have that too? So trust me, unions are a good thing across the board. There's a reason why a lot of right-wing governments around the country throughout the 70s and 80s worked really hard to fucking tamp down on broad unionization across the board, because they know that unions are great for the worker, really bad for the corporation, in terms of workers getting fair pay and fair benefits. And yeah, there's a lot of things in this country that you as an employee take for granted that unions have got you. Like the 5-day work week was a union, was brought about by unions. The 40-hour work week was brought about by unions. All of this stuff that is just part of the society now, were fought for and negotiated and ascertained by unions, and then it's just kind of spread out to everybody else. So
yeah, I think it's the other sort of thing about all of this is, and I'm just gonna quote a tweet that I saw that really sums it up, which is, it's very funny to see fear-mongering about video game industry unions rocking the boat when the unionless arrangement led to the last year's man-made industry apocalypse with no shortage of higher-ups looting the ruins.
Yeah. And that's a great point as well. Again, all you need to do is look at all these CEOs, and that's, we're going to kind of touch back on some of the downsides of the Microsoft acquisition, because that continues to be an ongoing story. But I will also tell you that Blizzard employees unionizing would have never happened unless they went with Microsoft. Like Activision,
that's also
and
true. Activision was never
have
do that. No.
Yeah. So again, it's a great thing, and I as we see, still rocky labor markets and stuff like that are slow to recover along with inflation curbing, I think you're just going to continue to see this more and more, not only in the games industry, but in sectors across the workforce in this country, because it does feel like there's a real moment in history right now for labor organization, and that's fucking great. And look, I say that as someone who's in management. I can't join a fucking union, even if my company could unionize. So, but I still totally support it, because again, those benefits all rise upward. So let's fucking do it. Good spot to take a break here. Take a quick break, and then we will come right back with more news. Well, if there's going to be two major unions, there's going to be a couple layoffs across the industry as well. The most surprising one, perhaps, at Humble Games. Humble Games, which is owned by Ziff Davis, who are also the owners of IGN, and now like Eurogamer and Rock Paper Shotgun and a lot of other games publishing sites, also own the Humble Corporation, which had two different divisions, Humble Games and Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle, of course, is the charity organization where you can get game keys, and they do all sorts of bundles and stuff like that. That is still open. Humble Games was the publishing arm of that side of the business, and Ziff Davis has decided to close that business and lay off about 35 employees. Of course, calling it a restructuring, which is one of those gross fucking corporate words that corporations like to use when they don't want to talk about how they're fucking firing people. This kind of came out of the blue last week, and there's been some interesting controversy about, like, this wasn't your typical man, like they're just cutting the fat off, and this is, we're just leaning up and getting people out of here. So the reason that people have heard that Ziff Davis did this is because, like,
he used fucking Chat GPT to write their fucking
that was also speculated. But the reason reportedly that this happened, that why this closure happened, is because, like, Ziff Davis just realized, like, man, like, publishing business sometimes takes a long time to get a real return on that investment.
Yeah.
And we kind of like the ad business where you can just kind of turn shit around really quickly and have money coming in all the time instead of the publishing industry, which is hey, you're putting out some money and that money is going to take a couple of years, but eventually it'll return itself, X times over when this game comes out, and hopefully you make a lot of money. And you might have some games that don't pan out so well, and those don't help you out too much, but hopefully you get a couple of games that really hit. And by the way, like Humble Games, by and large, if you look at their catalog of games that they've published, really high batting average rate, just in terms of like the quality of games that have come out that have come under the Humble Games label, including fucking Slay the Spire, like one of the most successful indie games in recent memory.
Hat in Time.
Yep. Unpacking.
Banger. Wander Song.
Yep. Signalis, which was a retro horror game that came out last year to a lot of acclaim. Stray Gods, which is the musical video game that came out recently.
Stray Gods, Temtem, Mineko's Night Market. Yeah, so definitely like as you said, a very high batting average for like quality titles being put out by them.
Yeah.
So
like I said, it's that's why it's kind of wild to me that like a company as big as Ziff Davis would not be willing or maybe even able to kind of stretch that money out. Like I wonder if that's also like I heard this on another podcast that I listened to where they speculated that like what if Ziff Davis just doesn't have the cash reserves on hand to be able to put out money like that and then wait 2 or 3 years or more for it to vest itself essentially, and have that money flowing back in. That's an interesting thought as well. So for whatever reason, it turns out that media companies don't like to be in the publishing business, I guess. So really, really fucking big bummer there for those folks. And then the other big layoffs that happened were more than 50 people were laid off at NetherRealm Studios because they have pretty much shuttered its mobile team. I did not realize that NetherRealm Studios had a mobile team, much less.
I also had no idea that they had a mobile team. It's apparently about 50 people. Yeah. So that obviously sucks. I guess the fact that neither of us knew that they had a mobile team probably speaks to the success of the mobile team there. But
I mean,
obviously,
look, we have said on this show many times that mobile is a huge blind spot for
it's also true. It's like I basically like I play Pokemon Go and Pokemon Masters, and that's really it. And outside of that,
mobile games is literally like the biggest revenue generating part of the video game industry, and all of us are just like, I don't fucking know, Roblox, I guess.
Well, I'm gonna play Shin Megami Tensei. Like, I'm not gonna play a mobile game. It's not gonna happen. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. Speaking of things not going too well, so the Concord open beta was a couple weekends ago. Sony opened up the beta for their upcoming hero shooter Concord on both PlayStation and on PC. And weirdly, so on PlayStation, to get access to the beta, you had to pre-order the game.
Mm-hmm.
On PC, you had no obligation to do anything with it. Like, they just had an open beta that you could download from Steam and fucking rock and roll. From what I heard about the game, like, it's fine, but like a lot of people were like, yeah, it's fine. It does what it says on the tin. I don't really feel a lot of compulsion to go back to it with the way things are right now.
So like per this Forbes article we've linked in the show notes, it's like big factors are like the combat is good, but it's not really standout. It's like, sure, it's a competent hero shooter, but it's just another one in the market. It's not doing anything new. Roster is not compelling. Hard to explain, but players don't really like the vibe of this game from an aesthetic perspective. It's $40 in a competitive market, especially when all of its competition is free to play. It's hard to want to shell out $40 for something. Basically, you know, I feel like the article sums it up. This is the Suicide Squad, they made a game no one asked for problem. Feels like a game designed around a concept they believed was unique and attractive enough, and that is simply not how it has landed. Hero shooter concept now feels dated unless you are dealing with a hyper recognizable IP such as Marvel Rivals, or you can break out of the crowd with your own heroes after players have now been playing Overwatch and Apex Legends for years.
Right. So to kind of underline this point, again, open beta on PC. The beta hit its peak when it first released on July 19th. And that peak was just under 2,400 players. Not 1,000, 2,400 players. And
you wouldn't even fill a minor league ballpark with every player that was
and now
this game.
Typically what'll happen with a lot of stuff like this, especially with, betas and of like shooters and stuff like that, is that people, will get in the door and then they'll tell their friends and their friends will tell their friends. And often you'll see those numbers will rise as word of mouth gets spread around. Instead, the numbers went the other direction. Eventually getting down to 1,100 players come Sunday, which was the last day at the beta, which, by the way, typically that's when those betas peak out as well, because again, it's the weekend, people aren't working, they have more free time and they have shit to do. And again, this is not a free to play game. This is going to be a $40 box game. Now, if you're saying, oh, well, it's a PlayStation game, it's not going to have that PC penetration. I pulled up the Steam DB charts for Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 currently, like right now, this is not even like, forget the huge peaks that the game had. The game peaked at 458,000 players concurrent.
Right.
5 months ago when the game first came out. But right now, like as we speak, there are just under 25,000 players playing Helldivers 2 on Steam, with a 24-hour peak of just under 30,000 players. And just a couple days ago, it got as high as close to 35,000 players. So it's not a PlayStation issue. And in fact, Helldivers 2 has outsold the PlayStation version. The PC version has outsold the PlayStation version by a factor, I want to say, of like 1.75 to 1, or it might even be like 2 to 1. So
yeah,
again, you can come out with a $40 box product, but it has to be a compelling and unique product in order to get people in the door, and just kind of making, a game that is rehashing a lot of what Overwatch did, which apparently Concord is. That's kind of what Concord fucking is. Kind of a mixture of that and Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not going to get people out there. So I am very concerned about the prognosis for Concord. That is really not a good sign. And it would not at all surprise me if instead of this game coming out in a couple months, like it's supposed to, we might see a delay, get pushed back as they try to figure out how to remarket it, or Sony just cuts their losses and pushes out the door and they get what they get, and that's it. So
yeah, I feel like either is equally likely, so who knows.
Yep.
I won't be playing it either way. So
no, I mean, like I said, I barely played Overwatch, and that's a game that allures me a lot more than I have had zero desire to get to check out Concord. So the FTC is out here saying we fucking told you so. So as part of the knock on from the Game Pass price hikes and the big layoffs that Microsoft did a couple months ago, the FTC is out here sticking their fucking chest out, basically saying that what Microsoft did, increasing the price of Game Pass, is, quote, exactly the sort of consumer harm, end quote, it tried to stop by fighting the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Basically, they have called Game Pass a degraded product, is the term that they use. And their point is that they are removing the most valuable games from Microsoft's new service, combined with price increases for existing users. And they're talking about, of course, of removing the day one Game Pass games for Microsoft exclusives from the lower Game Pass tiers.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, Microsoft has responded to this, saying that While Game Pass Ultimate's price will increase, the service will offer more value through many new games available day and date. Among them is the upcoming release of Call of Duty, which has never been available before on a subscription day and date, which I guess is true, but that's only going to necessarily appeal to people who play Call of Duty. If you're subscribed to Game Pass for literally any other reason, this is absolutely a product degradation.
Well, and the FTC calls that out because they go on to note that quote Microsoft's price increases coincide with adding Call of Duty to Game Pass's most expensive tier, and discontinuing the console tier will happen shortly before releasing Call of Duty's newest game. They also go on to note that Microsoft promised that the acquisition would benefit customers by making Call of Duty available on Microsoft's Game Pass on the day of release on the console, with no price increase for the service based on the acquisition. End quote. By the way, that's them quoting Microsoft when they were in court fighting to say no, this merger is great actually, and we should fucking do it.
Yeah.
So Microsoft's lawyers said that the factual assertions are incomplete, and misleading here.
I don't know about that, but that's a real lawyerly response.
It just makes me think of the old Commander Shepard. I'm sick and tired of your disingenuous assertions, or whatever the fucking line is from whichever Mass Effect it is. The tragedy here is that nothing's gonna fucking happen. It's not like this merger is gonna unwind. It's not like it's gonna change a goddamn thing. Look, Microsoft lied their asses off in court, and they probably knew that they were lying their asses off in court to say whatever they had to say to get this merger through. Until the courts get a little bit more stringent on here about this kind of stuff, this is just going to continue to keep on happening.
Yeah. Well,
here's a weird story. According to them, Netflix has over 80 games currently in development, and they plan to launch them one a month into their subscription service. So I don't know if you knew this, listeners, but Netflix has a game service that if you have a Netflix account and you have a mobile device, you can play games on your mobile device through Netflix. And it's not just, fucking bullshit games that, you've never heard of before, but like ETA, Football Manager, Sonic Mania. There's a lot of games, fucking Into the Breach. There's a lot of games that have ended up on Netflix. And they have also had interactive games that have come out that are interesting. Like, I haven't played them, but I've heard that they are they're kind of in that same vein as the like all the Sam Barlow games that come out. Basically,
yeah, they're basically visual novels.
Yeah.
And they're all based on Netflix proprietary properties. I remember one of the big early ones was Black Mirror, right? There was a Black Mirror interactive thing, which a lot of people just called like an interactive episode. But what it is a visual novel.
Right.
And same deal, there was like when they were doing the Carmen Sandiego cartoon, there was one for that too. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they have a bunch of those, and it's an interesting way to kind of interact with media. It's very much a choose your own adventure kind of deal, right? It's just, you play through the story. So for what it's worth, it is unclear what the split is between in-house and third party for the 80 currently in development, or if anything has changed since last year. So who knows what's going on, but yeah, if you've got Netflix, you've got access to all of these games, so might be worth checking out. So
I gotta say, I think they're being pretty smart and savvy about their strategy so far with this. They're kind of leaning into what the platform is capable of. Like, if this is something that's only going to be available through mobile platforms, which it is, you kind of want games that have low overhead, low interaction, stuff where latency is not going to be as big of an issue. I think that's a really smart way to go about it. I think the biggest thing that they need now is they need kind of like that killer app. Like, they need that fucking thing that people are talking about that make them, if they didn't even know that the fucking, Netflix games tab existed, that makes them go in there and check it out. So, I guess hopefully for them, one of these things that they have in the pipeline is going to be just that, and gets people to kind of mosey on over there and see what they have cooking. Otherwise, they're kind of just in a very crowded jungle right now, especially with, you know, Microsoft having their over-the-top streaming service and things like GeForce Now and things of that nature, that are competitors to them. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's interesting to see them investing more bandwidth into this. So, finally, the last news story. Ubisoft has not learned the first lesson of internet discourse, and that is by not feed the trolls. They have published an open letter to the quote Japanese community, end quote, to address the concern trolling that we're seeing on the internet from a bunch of probably not Japanese people about
from
how
a bunch of white men pretending to be Japanese people,
about how certain aspects of Japanese history are being portrayed in the new and upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows, including Chief Man Baby himself, Twitter CEO, and I'm going to keep calling it that, Elon Musk.
I'm gonna dead name Twitter like Elon dead names his kids.
There you go. Who wrote on Twitter that the game has been quote injected with DEI, because that's the new fucking buzzword. Because they dared to have a black protagonist in the game with historical context as to why it would make sense for him to be in Japan in the time setting that the game is placed in.
Yep.
Get the fuck out of here with all that. Now, there was, like, mixed within this kind of stuff is kind of like accidental good points, right? Where, like, one of the things that they address is they're in, like, the Japanese trailer for the game, their Chinese subtitles that they put in there by accident. And people from Japan were really upset about that, apparently. Okay, fine. Like, yes, you fucked up. That makes sense. I can see where you might need to apologize for that. But all this fucking bullshit about how, you know, like,
Yasuke wasn't a samurai or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just like,
again, the question that I have to ask is, have people who are making these complaints ever played an Assassin's Creed game before? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. My knowledge of Renaissance era history is novice at best. I don't think Rodrigo Borgia was assassinated by a secret cabal of hidden knife-wielding maniacs that while he was trying to look for an ancient relic of, like, a proto-race that existed before humankind. I might be wrong about that. Like, that could be a historical oversight on my behalf. But I don't feel like that ever did happen.
Yeah, look, I'm again, similarly, you know, I am not a grand historian, but I'm pretty sure Leonardo da Vinci did not create a set of hidden blades to be used by a group of assassins to carry out their plans. Pretty sure that didn't happen either, but no one seems to be upset about that.
We don't know for sure. We weren't
look,
back
who knows? Who would know?
Yeah.
Of course.
Who could possibly say? I also don't think that people in ancient Egypt and ancient Greece were going around fighting literal mythical creatures that would just pop up around the landscape, like cyclopses and like giant Egyptian asps and stuff like that. My point is that the franchise from the
franchise
beginning
has always been fucking like loosely based on different historical areas with a certain degree of video game bullshit mixed in. And that's exactly
by their own admission, they use again what the studios have said is they use history as a setting and a playground, and they create interesting stories based around that setting and playground, where they use characters and people and settings and historical events in and frame them in a way that helps support their narrative. You know what I mean? Like, again,
but Yasuke's just a touch too far, right? I guess.
We can't possibly believe that there was this giant hulking black man walking around feudal era Japan, except for all the stuff that talks about this guy actually existing and being part of, like, Nobunaga's retinue. Like, except for all of the historical stuff that exists out there that suggests that this was a real dude. It's a bridge too far to have a fucking black guy. And the other reason that they're pissed off, of course, is because, well, if you don't like, you get to play this fucking black guy, that's incredibly unrealistic. But the other main character, of course, is Japanese, but she's a woman. Oh,
it's a woman.
we can't.
No, can't have that. Can't have that at all.
We can't. I mean, Carrie, and let me play devil's advocate a little bit here for them. I mean, it's not like they have a lot of other games to choose from where they can play as a man in like feudal era Japanese samurai time. It's not like
those games don't exist. They definitely haven't been made, and there certainly haven't been several of them to release to massive critical acclaim within the last 5 years.
Right. It's not like Sony's out here fucking putting out samurai games with dudes as the main character that you can go around.
It's not like From Software has put out a Souls-like in that vein of
It's not like the Yakuza series is fucking making games that look back at historical Japan. Like they're focused on the modern age. Come on. What are we even doing here?
Can't have it.
So
I need men to just cease, please.
And ironically, Mark Alexis Cote, who's the executive producer, and he's the vice president of the Assassin's Creed series, he was asked by Stephen Totillo about the tweet from Elon Musk specifically, and he had the right reaction where he said, I saw the tweet and I was getting ready to respond and I typed out the response and I was gonna tweet back to him, and he's like, and then I took a step back and was like, why the fuck am I gonna engage? Like, why would I even waste my time? He's a sad fucking hateful dude. Everyone can see that now. He's not worth even the time to respond to me. That's what Ubisoft should have fucking done here. They didn't need to put out a fucking 4-screen apology to the Japanese people who were I would imagine there's probably some Japanese people that were really upset. I would imagine, to your point earlier that you said,
no,
the vast majority,
it's probably at least 90% white men pretending to be Japanese people online.
Yeah.
Like,
but again, none of them complained in any prior stuff. Like, again, like, Leonardo da Vinci wouldn't be designing a flying machine for a mass murderer. Like, there's no way that would happen. Like, again, they're not complaining when when we're jumping out on other historical hurdles. But fuck, you put a black man in Japan. What the hell? What are we even doing here? So
awful.
Don't feed the trolls.
Can't believe they did this. Yeah.
Don't feed the trolls. That is the lesson to take from this entire story. Another good place for a break. We'll come right back. I'm going to talk about Donut County, and then we'll get into the post-op. So I played Donut County. It's a game that's been on my list for quite some time. It's a short game. You can beat it in a couple of hours. It's a cute little...
I beat it in one sitting.
I could have. I beat it in 2, only because I forced myself to step away because I didn't feel like playing through the whole game. But look, fun little puzzle game. The premise of the game is you have a raccoon who has an app that creates holes in the ground, and the hole in the ground gets bigger when you drop things into it. So you're basically going around these little scenescapes, maneuvering the hole around the ground, dropping things into it, and as the hole grows, you can drop bigger and bigger things into it. And it's got a funny, cute little short story with a lot of anthropomorphic animals, including the main character. I think his name is BK, if I'm not mistaken, the raccoon, who's a fucking douchebag who comes
just
good at the end.
Little shit for brains raccoon. Yeah. I liked Donut County for what it was. When I played it, it felt like it had been kind of hyped up to me to a certain extent. And when I played it, I sort of felt like it was okay. But I mean, it was I think it was like $2.
Well, that's the thing. I was gonna say the game is $15 normally. I don't know that I pay $15 for it, but it also goes on sale for like $3.50 all the time, and it's absolutely worth a purchase at that amount.
100%. Yeah, it is worth $5. But the comparisons, I feel like it's closest to like a Katamari in terms of like the gameplay loop.
Yes.
Where it's like thing gets bigger as you accumulate more things, right? So it's like with the Katamari, you can start picking up bigger things as the Katamari ball gets bigger, but you have to pick up small things first. Same exact philosophy in terms of game design for Donut County is hole gets bigger as you swallow up more smaller things.
Yes.
So, but yeah,
it did, and I appreciate that wasn't the only gimmick. Like as you progress through the game, there are some actual puzzles that you have to solve where you have to actually like swallow certain things in certain
move
orders.
Water around and stuff like that. Yeah.
So again, a great way to spend a couple hours just futzing around. And again, it's a low level puzzle game. Like it doesn't require a lot of mental lifts. So if you're one of those people that like, I like puzzle games, but I also am bad at them and I don't want to feel like an idiot, this is not a game that will make you feel like an idiot. And it's a fun little story. So I highly recommend Donut County if you can catch it on a sale. It's a good one for that. So that takes us to the Dense Pixels post office. You can join our Discord by going to densepixels.com/fans and ask us anything you want, and we'll answer the questions on the show. Just like Mad Coco G did, where he asks, is there a chance that Sega shows more light on their new installments of the classic games? They've been pretty silent since they announced them. I don't think you're going to see much on this until they're out, honestly.
No, probably not until they're out. For anyone confused as to what he is referencing, back in December at the Game Awards, Sega showed off basically the fact that they are bringing back a bunch of old franchises, namely Crazy Taxi, Streets of Rage, Jet Set Radio, and Shinobi. So yeah, like that's great. And Golden Axe too. So look, if you are a fan of classic Sega franchises, and boy howdy do I love me some Crazy Taxi, it was something worth getting excited about. But of course, keeping in mind that is only just now 7 months ago too. So not much would have happened within that time for them to show anything new off. And given that basically all of those games shown are in like a pre-alpha state, if any gameplay footage was even shown, yeah, we're not going to see anything from them for quite some time. Maybe one of those games will have a trailer at this year's Game Awards, but probably not all of them. But who knows? Sega's done stranger things before. Now if only they would bring back Skies of Arcadia.
Honestly, when it comes to like shit like that, like I've just fallen so far into the just fucking emulate it camp at this point. Like,
I mean, well, here's the thing. I own Skies of Arcadia. I can play it whenever I want. I own a legit version on the GameCube.
But you want a nice remastered.
I could sell. I want it remastered because that game is janky as fuck. And like I've tried, like I have gone back recently, and when I say recently, I mean within the last year and a half, to go back and play Skies of Arcadia, and it is jank in a way that I no longer really find charming or fun to play. So I want a contemporary remaster with all of the quality of life upgrades that would hopefully come along with it. But yeah, I mean, look, there's also, what's that other game that just Bomb Rush Cyberpunk? That's like Jet Set Radio. So there are certainly other things.
Well, and that's the thing is I feel like that if there really is a groundswell of love and support for a specific game, right, or genre of game that their former publishers have ignored, I feel like the indie community is really finding ways to pick up that slack. I mean, we kind of seen that with games like Chained Echoes and Sea of Stars, which are really harkening back to that old school 16-bit era style of JRPG. Sorry, I don't want to offend any fucking Final Fantasy producers who, with that term. But I feel like indies are carrying the torch now for a lot of beloved but not exactly AAA profitable styles in certain games that are coming out that the bigger publishers kind of don't want anything to do with at this point anymore. So, which sucks. I mean, it'd be cool to get some of that stuff with actual budget behind it, but I'm also just happy to play stuff that might not be as polished, but has a lot more love and creative care put into it than might otherwise. Cam, this is not question, says, imagine booting up Team Deathmatch and right before it starts, you hear, Call of Duty has more than one royal family. Cam is referencing the addition of what is it, the new WWE Superstars pack they put in Call of Duty Warzone, where you can get skins to make your character look like Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley, or Rey Mysterio. Well, talk about a random fucking third person into the mix. And also, like, they have special finishers now, like Cody Rhodes' Crossroads finisher and Rey Mysterio's Hurricane Rana and shit like that. Well, going on like TikTok and seeing like people playing as a team of Rhea Ripley's, it's just fucking weird in Call of Duty. It's really funny, like how much it's just funny how things cycle around, right? We've always kind of made fun of the Indiana Jones to Tomb Raider to Uncharted to Tomb Raider to Indiana Jones cycle that's kind of happening in video games nowadays. It's amazing how much Call of Duty is trying to be like Fortnite because they see that that's the successful business model that will earn them the regular revenue generation that they've always dreamed of, to be able to get there. So whatever, it's not my scene, but cool if people are enjoying it. So Ewash says, with Heihachi surviving being dropped in lava and coming out healthier and younger than ever, what is your favorite video game return from death?
Oh man,
I know mine just because it was so out of left field that.
Okay, what's yours?
When Big Boss comes back at the very end of Metal Gear Solid 4, even though Big Boss in the canon story had literally been dead for the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, mine's unsurprisingly, mine's probably Golden Sun. Alex, who's ostensibly kind of the main antagonist of all three games, though something the game does that I find very funny is you never actually have the chance to fight him. So like you see him basically perish during the credits of the Lost Age, and then he shows up in the third game with like a Phantom of the Opera mask on, and he's like, "I'm back." He's going under a different name, and I was like, "I can see you, bitch!" Like, so goofy. They're like, "Oh, he's this mysterious man," and I'm like, "It's Alex wearing a mask, and it's not even covering his whole face." So I thought I liked that one mostly because like he's one of my favorite characters like in the franchise. So to like watch him basically become all powerful, quickly like presumably die, and then come back 30 years later, not having aged at all, and wearing a very theatrically dramatic mask was very funny for me.
Yeah, Big Boss sprung to mind immediately for me. I'm just like, no one expected this, and then he dies like 30 minutes later. Like he comes back, and again, this is during the literal feature movie length end cutscene from Metal Gear Solid 4. Like the last cutscene takes like fucking 70 minutes to burn through from when you put the controller down to the final credits rolling. So yeah, fucking wild times. Kojima was just in his shit when that game came out by far. Mark says, any recommendation on games that would be easy enough to play while possibly high on pain meds? I'm one of those PlayStation types and don't have the Switch, so handheld is out.
All right. First of all, hope whatever procedure you're getting that's going to require you to be on heavy pain medication goes smoothly. I've only ever had to be on heavy pain medication once, and that was when I had my wisdom teeth out 15 years ago. But so like I don't 100% remember what that sensation is like anymore. That being said, I feel like there's a certain kind of game that when you are super cooked, doesn't matter what you're cooked on, but when you're super cooked, it's just like it's easy, it's chill, it's low stakes, right? So my top recommendation to you is any of the Katamari Damacy games because they don't require quick reflexes. They have like the colors are nice. There's no violence. You're not going to get spooked by anything. The music is good. It's just you're just doing thumbsticks. Like you don't have to push any buttons. It's very low stakes, low effort, turn your brain off kind of gameplay. In a similar vein, Donut County, same kind of deal. If you um I also want to say like What the Golf would be a fun one because like that's going to require some slightly higher brain function, but there's not the thing for me, and I'm sure part of this is because like I have to wear glasses, I'm visually impaired, right? Is if I'm hella cooked, I don't want to do a lot of reading because it causes an eye strain that makes my eyes feel very tired. So any game that's like not a lot of reading, just a lot of casual, easy gameplay, that's my usual kind of go-to for when I'm stoned out of my gourd.
When I'm really fucking baked, here's my basic gaming playlist because I have one. Balatro, Tetris Effect Connected, Vampire Survivors, Lumines Remastered. Those are my go-to. Just anything you can kind of zone out to, that has cool visuals and sound. That is what you want. When it comes to that sort of thing. So there you go. Cam says SummerSlam this weekend. Who do you got? And Johnny coming through with the card because I would have literally remembered like 3 of the matches that are on the card. It's an interesting card. I'll tell you the only matches that I really care about. Obviously, Cody versus Solo, just because I think that Roman Reigns may come back this weekend, possibly. Gunther versus Damian Priest. I'm really hoping that Gunther wins. I think it's time for him. The CM Punk Drew McIntyre match is interesting for an entire host of reasons. I mean, obviously it's like Seth Rollins the referee, the cool story they've been telling with those guys, and just to see like how good is CM Punk still. He looked decent at the Royal Rumble, so hopefully he still has got it. And again, I've really been enjoying the story they've been telling with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. So I'm hoping that match is just a fucking brutal, kind of a beatdown sort of match. But I kind of see Liv Morgan still finding a way to win, in some way, shape, or form, which I think would be very interesting. Aside from that, like show me a match that Nia Jax's wrestled in that I liked, and that'll be the first one. Not a huge fan of hers. Hopefully Bailey overcomes her, but you could maybe see a Money in the Bank cash in afterwards. Really hoping that LA Knight beats Logan Paul. It's high time for LA Knight to be a singles champion in WWE. And I think we're about to see the Braun Breaker ascension. He's probably gonna win the Intercontinental title against Sami Zayn this weekend. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah. Should be a decent show.
It'll be on Peacock, right?
It will be on Peacock. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Have you seen any of the Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan story that they've been telling over the last couple weeks? Oh, it's so good.
I'm going in blind.
Oh, it's so no. Do yourself a favor. Like WWE does a really good job at putting out like these YouTube videos that are like, hey, here's the playlist of this. Like,
okay, art. I mean, if there's a playlist that I can just put on while I ignore my work inbox, then yeah, I'll do that.
Basically, long story short, Rhea Ripley's been injured, so she's been gone. And Liv Morgan, as part of her getting revenge on Rhea Ripley for turning on her a year ago and injuring her and putting her on the shelf for several months, is trying to steal everything from Rhea Ripley. She stole her title after Rhea Ripley had to give it up, so she's the women's champion right now. And then she's been trying to steal Dominic Mysterio as well, and like fucking get her tentacles in the Judgment Day as a faction. And it's just been really interesting how they've been doing it, and also really funny because they've done like the fucking screwball comedy shit where like her and Dominic were in a mixed tag match together and Dominic gets tripped and he falls like into Liv Morgan's crotch, like that, like sort of shit like that. Very like juvenile pro wrestling stuff. But Rhea's come back and it's kind of turned that whole feud up to another level. It's been fun. I definitely recommend going in and checking some shit out. Here's one for you, Carrie. Daniel asks thoughts on Fallout London, which finally has
Sure.
come out.
I've been vaguely aware of Fallout London's development, which started, I guess, in 2019. I remember like some of the trailers starting to come out a couple years ago. So it came out on July 25th. Now, Fallout London is essentially a total conversion mod for Fallout 4, taking place within London, which is a departure from the rest of the series, which is all taking place within the United States. Takes place between the events of Fallout and Fallout 2. I haven't played it. I would like to play it. I've heard it's decent. You know, I'm basically hearing it's like a 7 out of 10 kind of experience. But I love Fallout, and if I'm the kind of person who will go on record to say that I enjoyed Fallout 76 on day one, then I'll probably like Fallout London just fine. So interesting voice folks involved. Neil Newbon, who of course voiced Asterion in Baldur's Gate 3. Sylvester McCoy, who was a Doctor Who, the former Speaker of the House of Commons.
I was gonna say I can't remember his name. I think it's like John. It's John
Burkow.
John Burkow. Yes. If you've never seen John Burkow speak before, just search for John Burkow on YouTube. He was the guy that was making the rounds on viral clips a couple years ago when he was the Speaker of the House of Commons. He's the guy that like fucking screaming like order, like the fucking dais in Parliament. So that's cool that they got him to be in the game. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, so interesting voice cast. Look, I will absolutely check it out at some point. It's not really at the top of my priority list right now. I know that there are some typical oddball creation engine kind of bugs and glitches going on with that as well too, so I may wait for some of that stuff to get patched and whatnot.
And by the way, for those curious that are like, wait, I didn't see a new Fallout game. Fallout London is a big like mod that
it is a mod. It is a conversion mod.
have been working on for quite some time. That's a Fallout 4 mod. So you
do need to have the base version of Fallout 4 in order to play the game. So I think here's the thing, it's like if you bought the Game of the Year edition of Fallout 4, I think you have to like roll that back to the original release. So it's like, because I have Fallout 4 and then I have like the DLC installed separately because I bought the game when it came out, like I'll be able to do it myself. But if you for whatever reason waited on Fallout 4 until the Game of the Year edition came out, there's some additional steps you have to take in order to apply the mod to play it. But no, I think it's a really cool project. Looks cool. I will eventually check it out. So
finally, Johnny says Xbox 360 digital store and support has ended today. RIP. Where do you guys rank the 360 as far as consoles go? Now here's what's funny about this. I was never, even in the heyday, an Xbox guy. Like I was the dude that was fucking Sony till I die. Even when PlayStation 3 first came out and was crap, like I was still fucking backing Sony to the hilt. I had a 360 that I never really played. I infamously have owned, let me see, one, two, three. I've owned 5 Xboxes, and none of them have lasted longer than like a year and a half. And even when I had them, they weren't getting touched.
So I would say for me, it ranks like right in the middle. So I bought an Xbox 360 so that I could play Skyrim. And then I ended up playing a bunch of other stuff on it, like Dragon Age and stuff like that. The thing is, in 2015, the house that I was renting in Baltimore was broken into, and all of my consoles were swiped. And I chose to not replace the 360. Because at that point in time, I had started moving more towards PC gaming. And for me, it was, all of the games that I would have wanted to play on 360 were available to me on PC anyway. So I never got another Xbox after that. The most recent Xbox gaming experience I have had was on my partner's Series X because he has Game Pass, and that's what I use to play Persona 3 Reload.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's very middle of the road for me. I thought it was a fine console. I got the Slim, which I thought was a great upgrade over the original 360. I feel like the 360 in a lot of ways is going to be remembered primarily for the red ring of death.
That's interesting.
Um,
I disagree with you on that. I like, even though I'm not an Xbox person, I can still recognize its place in history. Like, it was the vanguard for not only that console generation, but also the real, where it really console multiplayer really took off because of the Xbox
sure.
360.
And maybe I'm remembering it a certain way because I've never been into console multiplayer.
Right. Which,
But I want to say, just in terms of like the mainstream pop culture impact, I feel like when people think Xbox 360, a lot of times the first thing that comes to mind is going to be Red Ring of Death.
yeah.
Just because of how much of an issue that was. But it was, as we so frequently say on this show, a perfectly cromulent console. And
Truly embiggened the gaming landscape back
it
in its
did,
day.
it I think in a lot of ways, in hindsight, it's the best console that Microsoft has put out
Oh, that I don't
in
think that's
terms of
I think that's a bona fide 100%
Mhm.
undisputable fact. Um it's funny because and again, this could be rose tinted glasses and just kind of the nostalgia speaking. I feel like as every console generation progresses, I feel like the jump gets less and less. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like the
No, well,
jump,
you're 100%.
yeah. I feel like the jump from NES to Super Nintendo was enormous, to 64, PlayStation was enormous, to PlayStation 2
Yeah.
was enormous. And I think that when you saw the 360 PS3 generation, that was kind of like the in-between one, right? Where, like, yes, there was a huge leap in terms of like fidelity and stuff like that, but that's also where you started to begin to see like the diminishing returns a little bit. And I think that
Yeah.
you've gotten that more and more as the console generations have gone upward. So it's an interesting fulcrum in there, but I think it says a lot that despite the year advantage and despite the kind of shambles state that the PlayStation 3 released in when it came out, that it ended up outselling the Xbox 360 when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
So take from that what you will. But again, I'm still kind of a Sony kid, so like that's kind of just the way it is. So that is it for the questions. Thank you guys for submitting those in the Discord, which again you can get to by going to densepixels.com/fans. If you're listening on podcast services, don't forget to go to youtube.com/densepixels to subscribe there as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us as well as all the other TNP Studio shows on podcast services that you use. And don't forget to sign up for premium content from TNP by going to densepixels.com/premium, which just costs you $5 a month to get access to our premium slate of content. And look, if you're a politics person, or if you're not a politics person, look forward is going to be required listening for the next 4 months, because it's going to be a fucking wild time in the United States politics leading up to the election this year. So,
Yep.
there you go. That's it for us. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. We'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.